I come today to bring you a very simple message. Iran must be free. The dictatorship must be destroyed. Containment is appeasement, and appeasement is surrender. The only practical goal is to support a movement to free Iran. Any other goal will leave a dictatorship finding ways to get around any agreement and to lie about everything. After all, a dictatorship that appoints as its justice minister someone who killed 30,000 people is telling you everything you need to know about the core nature of the dictatorship. This is a regime which thinks it's justice to kill 30,000 people. This is a regime which thinks it's justice to have an election where no one is allowed to run. This is a regime which threatens all of its dissidents, all of its critics, with jail at best and death at worst. So I believe we will win. I believe we will win together. I believe we will win for freedom. And I believe you will someday be proud to say you were part of what freed Iran. Thank you, good luck, and God bless you.
They want to be able to speak freely. And they want to practice their religion the way they want to, not the way the government tells them. You know your own people better than I do. And you know that's what's in their heart. And it's the murder and the oppression of the government that is stopping that from happening. And we have to break that loose. And supporting the MEK is one of the reasons and one of the ways to break that loose under the leadership of a great hero, Madam Rajavi. I'm happy that I'm here today because I truly believe what I've said and what Madam Rajavi said and what many of the speakers are going to say, that a freer Iran is on the horizon. But I'm happiest to be here because finally I can say, and I can probably say this with a good deal of authority, that the government of the United States supports you. We're behind you. We agree with your values. The government of the United States understands the danger of Iran. The government of the United States will not allow Iran to become an empire in the Middle East. And the United States of America will not allow Iran to become a nuclear power under any circumstances. This is the first time I could stand here. This is the first time I could stand here and feel proud of my government. Every other time I stood here, I was embarrassed for the cowardice, for the denial, for the unwillingness to see Iran for what it was. And finally, I can stand here and say, you, I, my government, and your leadership, we see Iran in exactly the same way. The regime is evil, and it must go. Free Iran!
Good afternoon. Thank you. So, for the first time in at least 8 years that I've been coming to this event, I can say that we have a President of the United States who is completely and totally opposed to the regime in Tehran. Now, there is underway, as there often is in a new American administration, a policy review to determine what U.S. policy will be on a whole range of issues, including how to deal with the regime in Tehran. But even as that review goes on, Congress is moving with what for Congress is great speed to enact new economic sanctions legislation against the regime in Iran. These sanctions, when they are put in place, will be because of the regime's suppression of its own people and because of their continued support for terrorism around the world. They will not be related to the nuclear issue, although the regime in Tehran has said if these sanctions are enacted into law, they will consider it a breach of the agreement. And it's also critical as we look at this policy review to understand what we want the outcome to be and what in the United States many of us are working toward. The outcome of the President's policy review should be to determine that the Ayatollah Khomeini's 1979 revolution will not last until its 40th birthday. Now, the fact is that the Tehran regime is the central problem in the Middle East. There's no fundamental difference between the Ayatollah Khomeini and President Rouhani. They're two sides of the same coin. I remember when Rouhani was the regime's chief nuclear negotiator. You couldn't trust him then. You can't trust him today. And the day after North Korea has that capability, the regime in Tehran will have it as well, simply by signing a check. That's what proliferation is. That's what the threat's about. And that's why Donald Trump's views on North Korea are so similar to his views on the regime in Tehran. The regime has failed internationally. It has failed domestically in economics and politics. Indeed, its time of weakening is only accelerating. And that's why the changed circumstances in the United States, I think throughout Europe, and here today are so important. There is a viable opposition to the rule of the Ayatollahs, and that opposition is centered in this room today. I have said for over 10 years since coming to these events that the declared policy of the United States of America should be the overthrow of the mullahs regime in Tehran. The behavior and the objectives of the regime are not going to change, and therefore the only solution is to change the regime itself. And that's why before 2019, we here will celebrate in Tehran. Thank you very much.